We're almost halfway through National Hispanic Heritage Month, and while there's much to celebrate, there's a lot on the line for Latinos too. Politicians using migrants, men, women, and children as political stunts. A ballot question that could take away the ability for everyone to apply for a driver's license here in Massachusetts, regardless of legal status, and continued massive gaps in representation, wealth, and opportunity. This is all up against the demographic backdrop of nearly half of the growth, actually more than half of the growth in the United States population since 2010 being comprised of Latinos, and since 1980, nearly 100% of the population growth in Boston. That's nearly 100%. Joined by Alberto Vasallo, President and CEO of El Mundo Boston, State Representative and Dr. John Santiago, who's a member of the Massachusetts Black and Latino Legislative Caucus. Alberto, Representative, it's good to see you both.
Hi there.
Good to be here.
Nice to be here.
Alberto, what should we be celebrating this month?
There's a lot. There's a lot to be celebrating aside from what you just talked about. Obviously, in this last, the last election day, which used to be the scariest night of the year for Latino candidates. Now it's not like that anymore. So yeah, on the representation side and on the political side, a lot of the upside, things we've been waiting for decades. So a long time coming.
Representative, the other day, Marcela Garcia from the Globe was on our show, and she had just written a story about how the number of Latinos in the legislature is about to practically double from, I think, 7 to 13 she talked about. What's the real world consequence of such an increase?
Well, I think, as Alberto said, we're pretty excited about it. And this has been the result of a lot of hard work people have done across the entire Commonwealth, not just the activists and the advocates, the common voter, but also within the legislature. Make no mistake, we created 16 new majority minority districts this past go around. As a result, we've been able to put more Latino folks in office. Now, we do have a growing electorate. The demographics are increasing, but the Latino community in Boston and across the Commonwealth is organizing. And as a result, we're going to have more people in office to fight for the values and issues that we care about. You brought up a couple of these issues, whether it's immigration, what happens, post-COVID, economic justice, educational justice. These are issues we have been fighting for and that we will continue to fight for.
In terms of political power, Alberto, the governor was in our studio today when I mentioned on the air that you two would be here. And right after we went off the air, he mentioned a statistic that you communicated to him at one point. Share that with the audience, what you sent to Governor Baker, if you would.
Yeah, he's loved that statistic. And I told him this was a couple of years ago, I said, Gov, every 30 seconds, so by the time I stopped, that I finished telling you this is what's going to happen, I said every 30 seconds in the United States, a Latino turns 18 and a non-Latino retires from the workforce. So there's an aging population being replaced by one that's becoming of age to vote every 30 seconds in the United States. And that trend is projected to go on for the next 20 years.
So obviously the numbers we talked about, Representative, are going to increase. But speaking of numbers, there's a lot of attention, including on this show, to two numbers in a 2015 Federal Reserve study. Virtually everybody watching the show has memorized them. $247,000 of wealth for a white family in Boston, in this area, and only $8 for a black family. But almost never do we keep going and say in that same study, Puerto Rican families, only $3,000. That's not a typo at the bottom. Dominican families, $0. How do we get from here to a place where those kinds of numbers for families of color are not as embarrassing as they are there?
Well, it's just a lack of generational investment for a very long time. You're absolutely right. When those numbers are quoted, they often leave out the Latino numbers. And I want to highlight one specific point that you brought up. The Latino group in Massachusetts isn't a monolith by any means. And that graphic you had right there, you had Dominicans, you had Puerto Ricans, but the community across Boston, across the entire Commonwealth is very diverse. You have folks from Central America, Mexico, they're growing across the whole Commonwealth. It's important that we treat this not like a monolith, but treat it as diverse as a community as it is.
And it seems to me, Alberto, that one of the places where the work has got to be done to ensure that numbers like that don't hold and some of the other unlevel playing field situations don't hold is education equity I assume, has got to be at the absolute top of the list. We are nowhere near there, are we?
No, but see, here's the thing, though, that people forget. when you throw out a statistic like that, I always say, well, the white population's got generations and generations of head start of us, right? We have a lot of newcomers, right? My generation, I was born in Boston. So that's now it's not just the Alberto Vasallo generations, it's the ones that are coming after me. We do this event called Latino 30 under 30, and the young, well, I call them kids now, but they're in their 20s, that are coming down the pike, that are the future leaders of America, are going to absolutely change that statistic. I heard the other day that the most sought after demographics, it's going to be the upscale Latino. And those are under 30, college graduate, completely bilingual, bicultural. So those numbers, I will see, at least on the Latino side, I can't speak for other groups, are absolutely going to change in the next 10 years. Guaranteed.
Representative, I introduced the two of you by talking about something that have been huge national headlines and will be huge headlines here in Massachusetts. The national headlines, which obviously started here, is the cruelty of Governor DeSantis and what happened, and the warmth with which those Venezuelan migrants were greeted. And then in Massachusetts, we're coming up upon question 4, which will be an attempt to repeal what you and your colleagues in the legislature did, namely allowed undocumented workers in the state to get a driver's license so they can go to work, so they can take their kid to a doctor, that sort of thing. When I think about those, on one hand, I say to myself, they help poison the well and feed the racism in this country. On the other hand, I say, look at the good that came out of people in this state treating other people in need like I would want to be treated in those kinds of circumstances. Look at the poll numbers on this undocumented driver's license thing, which show that the people of Massachusetts, in my estimation, have their priorities right. Where do you see those treatments of our fellow human beings playing out in terms of our relationships? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jim, I was there actually the next day.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The news report came out Thursday, and I went there Friday morning to help out in the emergency setting with respect to some of the potential health issues that may have arisen. I'm a physician, I speak Spanish, and what I can tell you with the 40, 50 people that were there are hardworking people who only want a shot at an opportunity to do something with their lives. They came here with a lot of hope, with a lot of desire to give back to their community, to the state of to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, or wherever they may be up. But this is a story that I'm seeing all across Boston, all across Greater Boston as well. You have Latino folks, undocumented, documented, that want to give back, that are hungry for change, and that want to do the work here. They just want a shot. So when it comes to the question 4, as you stated, it's an important one, right? We in the legislature passed that. We actually had to override the governor, I think at least once, maybe twice, to do that, with overwhelmingly in the House of Representatives and the Senate. I'm hopeful it'll pass, it'll be yes on 4 when it gets to the ballot box. But make no mistake, the House leadership and Senate leadership has made it very clear that we want to support this. And I'm hopeful that we can get folks on board to make sure that there's a resounding yes on 4 when it comes to the ballot November 8th.
Alberto, when you staying on the same thing for a second, part of the national dialogue objectifies immigrants, and it's sort of those people kind of thing. And I think if there's any good to come out of the story that the representative and I were just talking about, is that I think the average person who only sees what Fox News feeds them gets to see somebody who wants essentially exactly what they want, don't you think?
Yeah, well, there's a couple issues here. Is one, who's the quality, who's coming over, right? And I think John described, pretty eloquently the type of people. But I don't think so much from the moderate side, because you also get from Latinos who are here saying, yeah, these are great people and everything, but we are having problems in the United States ourselves. When you're getting 8,000 people at the border every single day, they could be the best people in the world. We have a broken immigration problem, and no Democrat has wanted to tackle it. No Republican has wanted, or the way the Republicans have wanted to tackle it is absolutely not the right way either. But the larger question is, we're going to continue to struggle with this if we don't fix this system. The states can't do it. This is a federal problem that's been kicked down. The can has been kicked down the road from Obama all the way down. So this is where we have to now. We're starting to realize that this problem has got to be addressed. It's got to be addressed in the next year or two, or we're just going to be here arguing all the time about what to do with these folks. Yeah, they're great, hardworking people, but what do we do with them?
Well, you know, Alberto,
Can I
if
just
I
add
can,
something real quick, Jim?
yeah, please, Representative.
They're also just not only issues of immigration. You know, we had millions of American citizens living on the island of Puerto Rico right now, where just Hurricane Fiona went there and destroyed an entire island. You know, an insult to injury, an island that had been devastated by Hurricane Maria, by economic collapse here. And so we have American citizens over there. They're not so much worried about their citizenship issue, but are in need of water, electricity, and social services. Now, without a doubt, many of those folks were to come to the Commonwealth today and look for services. We saw a big immigration push when they came after Hurricane Maria. And so it's important that we take into account the diversity of the Latino community, right? We're not a monolith. We have different issues, different concerns, but on the whole, folks are hardworking. They care about this country. They want to be here and they want to give back.
Well, you know, but Representative, just I was talking to Mayor Cruz, the former mayor of San Juan here the other night, who minced no words when it came to Donald Trump a couple of years ago, and he's flipping towels out, paper towels out to the crowd. It was quite clear to me the President of the United States had no idea that people lived in Puerto Rico were citizens of the United States. And I am guessing that the vast majority of people here are in this country are probably in the same spot, don't you think?
Well, I would agree. And a part of that's our role here in the media as elected officials to really uplift and educate folks about the value that they bring. And it's not just with respect to certain cultural interests that they may have, but they are some hardworking folks, and they, in terms of the economic output that they provide to Boston, the Commonwealth, it's a tremendous amount. And as Alberto said, demographics will continue to grow and elevate the status of Latino communities across the border. So it's important that we take them, that we include them, and that we provide services and make sure that they're engaged and a part of our society.
We only have a minute left, gentlemen. Alberto, starting with you, you're right. Immigration can only be fixed on the federal level. What's the most important thing that could be done on the state level to create a more level playing field?
I do believe that the undocumented being allowed to drive is an important one. It affects families. It affects people's ability to go to their work, to do their job. These are hardworking people. Many have been here for 20 years, and their livelihood depends on being able to be in a car. And I think it's going to provide insurance. You know, they're often going to have to get insurance. I think it's the right thing to do. I told Charlie this. Look at other states. The sky hasn't fallen. Look at other states who have done it. I think it'll be a huge positive move in the right direction.
15 seconds, John Santiago. Beyond that, what else could you be doing on Beacon Hill?
I'm looking for more diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly with what's happening right now in the current elections. We need every statewide candidate to make sure that they're engaging, that they're working with, that they're listening to Latino communities. And as someone who's endorsed Maura Healey for governor, Andrea Campbell, Kim Driscoll, those campaigns are doing the work, and I'm excited to support them.
Alberto Vasallo, Representative Santiago, as always, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Be well.
Thank you.